I think it's working. I just spent the last 30 minutes making my mic work, so that's great. Hi everybody. Today is October 11th. It's currently 1 a.m. I just got done, well, 30 minutes ago, I just got done watching Shaun of the Dead. Um, New haircut. Afro's kind of gone. Um, yeah, so that's how this is. New a lot of stuff, but yeah, it's 1 a.m. I'm tired, so we'll see how long this goes. I watched Shaun of the Dead. First time watching this. And wow, I really like it. You know, I think this movie is a pioneer of wait one second. Sorry. So I think this movie is a pioneer of the horror movie comedy genre. As in, this movie is a comedy movie first. It's a comedy movie set in a horror genre. Which I think this movie does perfectly. This movie is hilarious. And it sucks because it's British, you know? So it's kind of like this limbo of, it's really funny and I really like it. However, the Brits made it. Tough love. But, so this movie kicks ass, it rocks. Um, there are a lot of, like, very good parts of this film. There are very good, really funny moment. The funniest moment is when, Shaun is gonna jump over the fence and then the fence just falls over it's like a huge scene of like he's gonna be like the badass and then it this movie is very funny and I really like it. I do really like British humor, so this one kind of just like like it works for me. It works very well. um and it helps that it has Edgar Wright directing with the duo of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, who is a great. They're a great comedy duo. I've not seen Hot Fuzz, but I've seen Paul multiple times, and I also really like Paul. So, and I like Simon Pegg in a lot of works. I think he is a very great actor, very underrated actor, who we don't give enough credit to because of the type of works he's in. You know what I mean? But this movie is so good. It rocks. The directing's very good. The acting is surprisingly well done, which is not surprising in the sense because it does have Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, and uh, pretty good actors. You know, in general, it's not a comedy movie we see today where it's comedians and then actors. No, these are actors who are comedians, and so whether it is just the line, like how they show off the dialogue or how they move their bodies into back. It's so well done. It's so purposeful, and it works very well. Um, I mean, you know the sorry, this movie came out in 2004, which I'm not aware of any other movies that came out before it where it is these horror comedy specifics. You know, where we see the it's a comedy movie set in a horror genre. But since then, we have Zombieland. I mean, I guess I don't count Scary Movie. Those are enjoyably stupid movies that aren't supposed to be taken seriously. This movie is a very good movie. I don't think scary movies are very good. I think they're ridiculous and dumb, but they're funny in sometimes. But this movie is a horror comedy that works as a movie and that's it. There's a reason it's renowned and why it's beloved and everything. And so, you see this movie coming out in 2004, in a time when movie culture is very, shifting a little bit. It's being a little less serious with everything. You see a little more comedies coming out. Where not in 2004, but later on we'll have like, I guess this is kind of when like Adam Sandler's going a little nuts. Um, that SNL group is going crazy, you know, and so yeah, these comedy movies are coming out, and then this one takes the bold thing of like, let's make it a horror movie as well. Now this movie is not horrifying, but it's still a zombie movie, so you kind of have to like rope it in with that. But you know, you see this movie coming out in 2004, and then was it Tucker and Dale versus Evil comes out in 2010. I love that film. That film is very good. And then you have and Zombieland came out in 2009. Zombieland Double Tap comes out in 2019. And so you have these films that kind of take this formula that Shaun of the Dead helps create, as in these are comedy movies first, but set within a horror landscape. And I I love this. I love it when films aren't afraid to be comedy first and then the secondary thing, while also establishing itself as this is a serious movie. This is a movie that like we are actually trying to like, you know, like people should enjoy this. It's not a dumb movie. And I mean, you see it with Hot Fuzz. You see it with Paul. Edgar, I Edgar Wright has a great catalog of films that I think he's very underrated for. You know, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz. Um, I can't talk about The World's End because I've not even heard of it, but that's another Simon Pegg and Nick Frost film. But then you have Scott Pilgrim and Baby Driver. Are you kidding me? Any just for those two alone, Edgar Wright is a great director. But then when you know, loop in Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, it's wow. That's and then, you know, Last Night at Soho, um, I think is an okay movie. I think it definitely tries to be it's definitely trying to be a little more serious film. However, some aspects work, some aspects don't. I love Anya Taylor-Joy, so it's kind of like a she does very well in it, but then the story kind of falls flat. Anyways, I think that might be like the only rough spot in his like main catalog. And then you have The Running Man coming out later this year, which I am not a Glenn I'm not a Glenn Powell guy. Glenn Powell, whatever. Um, I think he's a little overrated. I've been unimpressed from what I've seen from him. I think he's a great actor. However, I think he gets too much credit. And something just feels off about him. Like, you know, that face is just but I'm still looking forward to that film mainly because, you know, I'm pretty sure it has Coleman Domingo in it. It has Josh Brolin, it has Michael Cera. Glenn Powell's still enjoyable to watch, but you know, and then Edgar Wright. And so I think Edgar Wright is a director that is very overlooked by many people, but once people realize that that is an Edgar Wright film, they're like, "Oh shit," you know. And I think he deserves a little more credit. I also think Simon Pegg deserves more credit too. You know, most people now know him through the Mission Impossible films, but I like to. I forget that he's in Ready Player One too, aged super up. But you know, Simon Pegg is, I think, one of the best English comedians to come out of recent times. You know, because you have the old era of Monty Python and Spinal Tap and all that, but then you have Simon Pegg and Nick Frost who aren't afraid to be goofy and dumb, but also still be good actors first. And that's very good. And so you see, I'm mainly speaking on the influence of this film. You see this film's influence reverberate throughout a lot of comedy. You know, like Tucker and Dale versus Evil and Zombieland, and then Zombieland Double Tap. And even like shows like Community, where Community is like my favorite TV show. Just background. And so seeing like the episode's epidemiology where zombies take over Greendale because of military rations. There's a lot of callbacks to that show spoofs a lot of films, and that episode very clearly spoofs this movie. And so watching this movie, and that's one of my favorite episodes too, of being like, oh shit, like Leonardo DiCaprio like pointing meme, like it's great. This movie rocks, and I think it is one. If I think back of all the comedies and all the horror films I've seen in the since 2000, um, I think this one is definitely up there as one of my favorite comedies and maybe one of my favorite horrors. It's hard to. Is this more? This is definitely more a comedy film, but still, I still rope it in with horror, even though it's not. It's not a scary movie at all. Even though there are parts where you're like, oh shit, someone on the corner. Um, but this film has very good acting, very good directing. The editing is a little overused for me because there are a lot of times where they overuse the really quick zoom shot on something happening, like zoom shot door opening, zoom shot pouring tea in the cup, zoom shot, and so there are those sequences of like three or four of those back to back to back to back, and then story happens, and then you see it again and again and again. And that mainly happens in the middle or beginning and middle, but it's still like I get it, and it sometimes works, but overused. It's kind of like which that is a very, I think, distinct Edgar Wright type thing to do. Um, but and this movie is like it's a comedy for the first, like it's a solo comedy film for the first 30 minutes. And there are a lot of times where you're like, oh shit, that's the start of the zombie apocalypse. Like when at the beginning when Shaun is like waking up and everything, or just the sick people in the streets. I guess that is the beginning of it, but like that doesn't really count because they aren't actually zombies yet. Anyways, um, this film is smart, and this film is funny, and this film isn't afraid to make a joke. The use of the F slur as cigarettes, which I know British people call it or used to call it at the same, is like a little iffy. The N word dropping is also a little rough, looking at it these days. Which I guess it is. It's still used in a comedic light, and the characters themselves are like, oh, come on, like after he does it, So it's a 2004 film, so obviously looking back, there are some problematic things. However, most of this film counterbalances it. Um, but now that I've watched this film might become a comfort movie in the same way Paul has. I don't know what to watch. I just need to relax, chill out, and laugh. And this film I enjoyed more than Paul. So I've been waiting to watch this film for a while. It's finally out on streaming. It's on Peacock. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. Um, it's a very good time. It's a very good and fun film. Um, and there's a lot of other elements at play that I haven't even touched on. Where it's like the romance and the choosing a relationship with your friends and the drama that comes with all that, and also just the characters. I'm gonna be honest. Ed fucking sucks. I hate it. Ed is the funny best friend that is getting dragged around by Shaun. Ed Loki sucks. David Loki sucks. Liz and Diane are sweethearts. And so you have this like thing of like you're rooting for the group to make it out, but also like I won't talk about the ending because I don't want to like spoil it or anything. But actually, fuck it. Whatever. Like it is still sweet at the end to see like David die. That was pretty nice. That was a epidemiology, spoof, but we're just getting pulled through the glass. But then, like at the end, when Shaun goes to the shed and plays video games with Ed, that's it's still like a heartwarming thing because you're like Ed is kind of a piece of shit, but he makes up for it in the end, and now he can still be friends with Shaun, and that's sweet. That's really nice. Um, I don't. I'm so sorry. I still have a cough. I'm tired. It's 1:10. So I don't really have many more thoughts. This movie's just a good time. It's very funny. British humor is very good in sometimes. Sometimes British humor is very good. And this is one of the examples of it being good. But yeah, today is October 11th. I started this movie around 11, I would say. So it got done around 12:30. Um, and yeah, the spooky season watch list is out the window. Um, I'm just gonna watch what I want to watch. There's two movies coming out this weekend that I want to see in theaters, and so I don't know if I'll have time for horror movies during that time. But whatever, I can always throw on a horror movie in the background and not really pay too much attention. Who said that? What? Who would do that? But yeah, no, very good movie. That is a staple, and I think it's a very good movie for people who don't like horror to watch because it isn't a horror movie. It's a comedy movie, and that's very good. But yeah, that's it. I think. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a good. Oh, fuck else. Rewind. I hope you guys have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night wherever you are. I hope you're happy. I hope you are staying safe, and I hope you have can get some peace of mind. But yeah, that's I think all I got. So, bye.